ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। Verse 23 in chapter 5. शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुं प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात् कामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं स युक्तः स सुखी नरः। So we were discussing in the last class that the entire psychology of Bhagavad Gita is in terms of managing these likes and dislikes, either ragadvesha, either kama krodha. And Bhagavan puts an emphasis basically on neutralizing them. Neutralizing them means they will be present. Ragadvesha, there is no mind which is free from ragadvesha, even of a wise person also. But wise person's free will is not impacted by the ragadvesha. That's the only thing. He is not under the pressure of that. So that much is sufficient, at least. And so, basically, Bhagavan also puts an emphasis for neutralizing this ragadvesha. We are also discussing this a desire which is not fulfilled, and one does not basically become upset in that process. Well, that desire is not a binding desire, and that kind of a desire is not a subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. One can keep those number of desires basically which are not binding. If you are not getting upset in the process of fulfilling them, then you can retain number of desires also. So that is not the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. Subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is this binding desire. There is another subject matter, but I am just saying. That's Brahma Vidya also is a subject matter, but I am saying. So a binding desire, which basically if I'm not able to fulfill, well, makes me upset. Well, then how to handle them? That is the Bhagavan is giving a solution here for that. So that's how Bhagavan has used the word vegaha. If kama krodod bhavam vegam. So a vega means a force, pressure. which is born of kama krodha, one has to become free from this pressure. Not one has to become free from ragadvesha, one has to become free from the pressure of ragadvesha. That's what Bhagavan says. That we call, Puja Swamiji gives a name called binding desire, which creates a bondage, which makes you upset, basically. That kind of, if I not fulfill that, then that kind of a desire is a subject matter of Bhagavad Gita. And definitely we know also that such a desire which if I am not able to fulfill turns into anger also. And therefore definitely it is a binding desire. So our objective is to make the desire free from basically this force. And we call it as a refinement of desire. Now how to do that? How to convert the binding desire into non-binding desire? Even though the number of desires are there, and even if I am able to fulfill or not able to fulfill, if in the process, if I don't get upset, then this kind of a desires are a vibhuti, basically glory of a human being. But how to convert this binding desire into non-binding desire? We discussed this. I'm just briefing you. So there are a number of steps we have to take to convert the binding desire into non-binding desire. The first thing is basically take a resolve. That I will not fulfill any desire which is illegitimate. That's a very, very important step. Without this step, it's impossible to go ahead. So it's a resolve we have to take. It may happen that we may fail sometime. We may even, so there are illegitimate desires, means like, telling lie to others, cheating others, exploiting others, something like that. Or a desire may be legitimate, like desire of a security, desire of gaining an object of enjoyment. It's a legitimate desire. But one tries to fulfill such desire also in an immoral way. Those things we have to take a resolve that I am not going to fulfill this desire. Even though the desire for security, etc., or gaining object of an enjoyment, etc., is valid, but I will not fulfill in an immoral way. So that's the first step we have to take. Then definitely, if that step is over, I am left with the desire which are legitimate now. So I have a desire of number of arthakamas, number of objects of security and number of objects of enjoyment, which I want to fulfill in a legitimate. I am left with those desires now. Now these desires can be divided into three groups, depending upon the intensity of the desire. We divide into three. There are certain mild desires. Arthakama desires are there. Security and pleasures. Such desires are there, but mild. Such mild desires, even without fulfillment, I can definitely get rid of. Just by taking an interview of another person who has fulfilled the desire. And after fulfilling desire, what is the situation now of that person? You should definitely ask to that person, and then gaining an impression from that, basically, then you can decide whether you want to fulfill that desire or not. And you can drop that desire. Being a very mild desire, you can drop it also. That is the first kind of a desire. Second is a little intense desire, which will not go by taking interview of other person, one who has fulfilled, and taking the interview of such a person, you will not be free from desire. You want to fulfill. That's okay. So because it's a desire for a security, desire for an object of enjoyment, okay, it's okay. Arthakama desire, but you want to fulfill them. After fulfilling such a desire, which are definitely a little more intense compared to the first one, you can do a Purushartha Viveka. Purushartha Viveka we have discussed before. There are 4 Purusharthas, as we said, right? Arthakama, Dharma and Moksha. So after fulfilling, one should definitely inquire into that whether I am really interested in an object of a security or whether I want to get rid of, whether I want to become free from the sense of insecurity. We should definitely ask into, and you will find that basically you are interested in freedom from insecurity. And therefore, so I am not interested really in a artha, object of security. Rather, I am interested in a moksha, freedom from insecurity. And this is one thing. And the second thing is I have a desire for kamas also. Whether I am interested in really an object of enjoyment or whether I am really interested in a freedom from being unhappy. And you will definitely find that you are really interested in gaining the freedom from unhappiness, uneasiness centered on the self. And therefore, so this, your desire of artha kama is now slowly converting into desire for a freedom, basically moksha. So, but those desires are legitimate desires. Then only this situation in the mind will occur. If all desires are illegitimate, or if I try to fulfill the legitimate desires of artha kama in an immoral way, then this situation will not occur in the mind. So basically, this is a second step in which I want to fulfill the desire of artha kama, but after fulfillment, I do a purushartha viveka. And there is a third category also. Even in a legitimate desire is that certain desires are very, very strong, very intense. Even after repeated fulfillment, they won't go. That is also a situation. And there definitely one finds oneself helpless. But as Pujya Swami says, one should not, feel helpless. You should always seek help. And so you should not feel helpless. That's an intelligent way of living. And so seek help. That you want to definitely get rid of the intensity of such a desire. And Ishvara will definitely help as a grace of him. Ultimately, through prayer, etc., of course, one gains such a capacity to bring under control such desire also. So the three groups are there: mild, little intense, and very intense. And one can definitely, convert one's legitimate desire into of artha kama into desire of a moksha. It will happen. Such desires are called sattvika desires, which Bhagavan himself defines it later. So desire of moksha, of course, also can become intense. That also can become intense. Desire of learning scriptures can become intense. Desire of gaining such a teacher, meeting such a teacher also becomes intense. All these also become intense. But since they are sattvika desires, ultimately that will not obstruct your knowledge. In fact, they are going towards the fulfillment of that desire. And so once you gain the jnanam, those desires are automatically, they lose their intensity, etc. And certain desires of artha kama also may be there, or at least kama also may be there in that wise person. Due to vasana, certain things he likes, certain things he doesn't like, but those desires also become non-binding naturally. Because of the knowledge, it has become badhita, and therefore, so the kama can be converted, this binding desire can be converted into non-binding desire by this scheme. This is what Bhagavan says here. So, shaknoti yahiva yasodum kama, so praksharira vimokshanat kama krodot bhavam vegam. So, this vegam, the force, the binding capacity of the desire can be converted into a non-binding desire by gradually refining the quality of a desire. So this is immoral desires, or illegitimate desires called tamasa desire. Then legitimate desire of artha kama is a rajasa desire. Ultimately gets converted into desire of a moksha, etc., or gaining knowledge, etc., is a sattvic desire. And such sattvic desire definitely is a refined desire. And therefore, after fulfillment, they also go away. And whatever the desires born of impressions, vasanas, even in a wise person, liking something or disliking something is non-binding for him. So this is the scheme. And we have also seen how to deal with the anger, because kama, krodha, both has been told. So the force which is born from such a binding desire, or force or the pressure which is born of a krodha also. So that also we discussed. Some of the part, of course, we could not complete last time, but I will again brief it. So basically, anger, we should understand that anger also, like action, is a part of this human being having a free will. Reaction also is a part. And so anger is basically a reaction. a mechanical response, and it is impulsive. It just happens. And well, such an emotional response is common to every human being. And so not only anger, other reactions also, jealousy is there, or depression is there, frustration is there, sorrow is there. All these are also reactions. They just happen. And so if you deal with one reaction called anger, you can deal with other reactions as well. So, so first thing is one should basically, separate action and reaction. That certain things are basically in my personality are certain. There are certain reactions and there are certain actions. So I have to distinguish it from action basically, and I acknowledge it that I have no power over the reaction because it's a mechanical response. It is impulse. It comes out on its own without my permission. And so, I can't deal with it unless I accept that it happens without my approval. First thing is to acknowledge that it happens without my approval. Generally, people say, I can control my anger. That is, which is centered on free will, you can definitely control. Like whether to eat or not, you may be able to control because it's within your free will. But this kind of reactions they just come out without your taking into your approval. Taking into consideration other approval, etc. So if I refuse to admit this fact that it is a reaction, I'm going to be the victim of the anger or a sorrow or a frustration or a jealousy. So first thing is we have to understand this thing, that this is a reaction. And then, by understanding an anger and its cause, I learn to then manage it. So there are 3 solutions to manage the anger. The first thing is, we have to identify the areas of vulnerability in terms of anger. We have to first identify. Everyone has a different areas. Everyone gets angry under different situations. And therefore, and how to know my areas of vulnerability in terms of anger? So this is given by Pujya Swamiji only. He himself has employed in his life. And that's how he was able to claim also that more or less he was free from the anger. So he said maintaining a journal, basically, a diary kind of a thing, noting down what made me angry. This maintaining a journal only for 1 month. So basically, what made me angry today? So I note it down in the night before I go to bed. Then next day again in the night I note it down. Third day I note it down. I need not see in the previous, I need not, go back to the previous pages and see yesterday because of what reason I got angry, etc. I need not. And day after day, and then after a month, if you read that journal or a diary, you will find a certain pattern has emerged. Under certain circumstances, it makes you basically aware of, these problem areas where you get angry. And then I can anticipate definitely my anger in a different situation. And I can respond also consciously instead of mechanically. So this is the thing. And simultaneously, because you are noting down, so it happens that if you read, you may definitely feel a regret that, because this situation, why did I get angry, etc. Such regret should not be there because you are in a process of learning. As I told you, that's the one sentence Pujya Swamiji said is, a learning man or learning person never regrets, and a regretting person never learns. And therefore, this is a very beautiful thing that we should not feel, because we are going to see in the Bhashyam, this will be there to every person till the death. These 2 things will be there. And therefore, let us be objective about it. I should not feel, regret that why should I get angry, etc. While maintaining journal, one has to do this simultaneously, this thing also, that I should not feel regret about the situations in which I got angry, etc. So this is one solution, noting down, etc., and learning any particular pattern or learning the certain situations I become aware of these problem areas. Second thing is live one day at a time. As such, we are living one day at a time. But it has to be told because people generally live in the past or in the future, or most of the time. Either I project too much of future and have a worries about the future, or I keep on, have a brooding in the past all the time. That's how, actually the fact is one live day at a time. Next morning one gets up or not itself is a question. Anyway, but here, especially in this case, it is very much required. So I make a resolve. Here, this is a second solution. I make a resolve that I will be alert to my anger today. That's all. I'll be alert to my anger today. I never say I will not be angry henceforth. That's not going to work. That will bring a dejection. It will definitely, you will condemn yourself because situations will be there and you will be vulnerable and you will definitely get angry. So basically, only for a day, I will be alert to my anger today, only for today. And so dealing with anger, one day at a time, gives me some breathing space. And so my anger, no longer seems unmanageable because at least I can manage for a day. And so all I have to do is I have to manage the anger for a day. And then, I can learn to manage day by day. And that's how this works, managing anger day by day. That works rather than having a resolve that I will not be angry henceforth. That doesn't work. So this is a second solution. And the third solution, which we could not discuss last time, was an auto-suggestion. Auto-suggestion, which it's a human capacity. Human mind has this amazing capacity to accept an auto-suggestion. So we'll use that. And what is it? And we have seen also, so you set an alarm to get up early in the morning to catch a flight, etc. And you will find that before alarm rings, you get up. So you have given an auto-suggestion in the night that I will get up in the morning at 4 o'clock or whatever, and you are able to get up. So auto-suggestion has been accepted by a human mind. It's a great capacity. I don't know, there is clock inside or not, maybe a biological clock, but before that you are able to get up. So we use this capacity basically, and human mind has that capacity to accept auto-suggestion and bringing it out at the appropriate time. So I use this capacity when I say to myself in the morning, before I come out of the bed, just I get up and I say to myself that I will not get angry today. Just you give a suggestion to yourself. And during the day when you are about to get angry, a red light flashes in your mind that that you are getting angry. So even if you do get angry, it is going to happen. Even if you do get angry, you are aware of your rising anger. That will happen. And then comes a time. If you keep on, giving this auto-suggestion day by day, then definitely comes a time when you know you are about to get angry ahead of the time. So this is the way we can definitely manage the anger. So eventually one's whole life becomes one of actions, conscious actions. One becomes free from reactions. So, and definitely the person who is not angry commands a respect from others. He has not to demand respect from others. So that's another thing. Generally we are interested in that. And so this is, as Pujya Swami says, these are the three methods to avoid the anger, or at least to avoid the impact of the anger on my free will, etc., or on my personality. Well, sometimes a person requires basically a therapy to deal with inbuilt anger. So that is a different issue. That psychiatrists come into the picture. But this is raga, dvesha or kama, krodha psychology, which has been dealt in Bhagavad Gita in this way. For most of the people, it is sufficient to observe one's anger and recognize its cause, basically, to be released from the stranglehold of that. So this is how kama and krodha, definitely pressure can be handled. Now let's go to Bhashyam. And the Bhashyam is very interesting here, and that's how we want to go through. So Bhashyakara says, before this verse, in introducing this verse, Ayam cha shreyo marga pratipakshi kashtatamo doshaha sarvanartha prapti hetuhu durnirvaryaha bhavati I am supplying, iti tat parihare yatna adhikyam kartavyam iti aha Bhagavan. Ayam cha, this. Bhagavan is using singular. We are talking about two things, raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, but Bhagavan is taking as a pair. So, ayam means this particular pair. Shreyo marga pratipakshi, Bhagavan says. Well, it's an obstacle to the Shreyo marga, moksha marga. This kama, krodha is an obstacle to the Shreyo marga or the moksha marga. Kashtatamo doshaha. Well, it is extremely kashtatamaha doshaha. This particular obstacle is very difficult to control. Difficult to control, and therefore, so difficult to handle, let us say. And sarvanartha prapti hetuhu. This kama krodha basically is a cause of gaining all evils. And how do you say all evils? Because Bhagavan has narrated, if you remember in the second chapter in that Sthita Prajna section, Bhagavan narrated the whole evil till the person is perished. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha buddhinashat pranashyati. Person is perished. The human being is no more a human being. He is as good as animal. Bhagavan said that to the extent of going to, he says to that extent. So, sarvanartha prapti hetuhu. This kama krodha basically is a cause of gaining all evils. Durnirvaryaha bhavati. It's difficult to basically eliminate also. Iti. This being the case. Tat parihare yatna adhikyam kartavyam. Tat parihare. Well, in eliminating this ragadvesha or kama krodha, yatna adhikyam kartavyam, intense effort should be put by a person. Iti aha Bhagavan. So Bhagavan says this in this verse. Shaknoti haiva yasodum, etc. So Shaknoti, Bhashyakara explains every word. That's the job of Bhashyakara. Bhashya means every word of the mantra should be explained, and more than what the meaning also should be explained. Purvapaksha also, if it is there, some doubt also it should be raised and answered and everything. So Shaknoti, utsahate, Bhashyakara says, capable of. Who is capable of? Yaha jivan eva utsahate. Yaha means the mumokshu, the seeker. Jivan eva. Iha eva, Bhagavan says. So Bhashyakara translates it as jivan eva. Iha eva means here. Means while living. When the person is alive, while he is capable of sodhum, prasahitum, he is capable of managing, enduring. Prak means purvam, before. Prak sharira vimokshanat. So prak sharira vimokshanat means before a fall of a body. So that shows Bhagavan wants to convey, don't think that this kama krodha is going to go away. It will be there until death. Until death. And we know it also. This thing is Bhagavan is revealing and we are knowing it's not. We know that this is there till the death. Kama or krodha, both. So prak means purvam and then before, and sharira vimokshanat means before the fall of a body. Bhashyakara translates it as amaranat, until death. So, Bhagavan wants to say that attack of them will be definitely continuous. We can't avoid this attack of kama krodha, basically. We can reduce its impact. That's what Bhagavan wants to convey. Means they are not going to get old. Body is going to get old, but this kama krodha will remain ever young. So, they will be there till the death. Anyway, then Bhashyakara feels that let me explain this. Until death means why? Why Bhagavan is saying like this? So he explains in the next paragraph. Marana sima karanam jivataha avashyam bhavihi kamakrodod bhavaha vegaha ananta nimittavan hi saha iti yavad maranam tavat na vishrambaniyaha ityarthaha. What Bhashyakara says is marana sima karanam. Sima, limit. Sima karanam, limiting. Give a limit. Limit of what? Maranam. So basically, Bhagavan is giving death as a limit for this kama krodha. Means till then, up to that point, they will be there. But, so, jivataha, they will be there for the living being. Avashyam bhavihi kamakrodot kamakrodot bhavaha vegaha. So this pressure, vegaha means a pressure which is born of this kamakrodha, the psychological pressure, emotional pressure, intense pressure will be there. Jivataha will, for a living being up to that death, will be there. Why it is like this? Ananta nimittavan. Ananta nimittavan means it is caused by basically different reasons in a different situations. Means under any pretext they are going to arise. Under any pretext they are going to arise. I mean, it may be, he may be a sannyasi or maybe a grihastha, any ashrama, maybe rich or a poor, or any situation for anybody of any ashrama, etc. also will arise. Ananta nimittavan means the cause for arising either kama, krodha are infinite. And therefore, they will be there till the death of a person. So, ananta nimittavan hi saha iti. Saha. Saha means saha vegaha. This particular pressure born of this kama krodha will be there. And it is since that pressure is caused by several reasons in several situations. And therefore, yavad maranam tavatna vishrambaniyaha. This being the case, this is the cause. Iti means here indicates iti hetoho. This is the cause for that, and therefore, avashyam bhavi means they are certainly going to arise, and therefore, yavad maranam tavatna vishrambaniyaha, until death, one should not be complacent about these two things. I mean, as a karta, I should see, continuously I should work for the reducing this pressure, because as a karta, I should see that, well, my free will should be retained. My free will should remain free. It should not be impacted by this pressure of ragadvesha. As a karta, I have to see that. And as a bhokta, well, I check my ragadvesha by avoiding reactions. Ragadvesha will definitely bring reactions. So as a bhokta, well, I should see that definitely the reaction should not arise. And as a karta, definitely my free will should not be impacted. So, yavat maranam tavat na vishrambaniyaha. One should not be complacent till the death. That is fine. But Bhagavan mentioned this kama krodha several places. Second chapter, third chapter also kama eshaha, krodha eshaha, rajoguna samudbhava. 16th chapter also Bhagavan has mentioned kama krodha parayanaha. And also in the 16th chapter, Bhagavan said, Trividham narakasedam dvaram nashanam atmanaha kamakrodas tatha lobaha tasmadetat trayam tejit. Several places Bhagavan mentioned this kamakrodha in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhashyakara did not define kamakrodha anywhere else. He defined kama and krodha, what is desire and what is this anger here. That's how I thought of taking this bhashyam. So, Bhashyakara defines now kama first. Kamaha indriya gochara prapte ishte vishaye shruyamane smaryamane va anubhute sukhahetau ya gardhihi trishna sa kamaha. This is called kama. This is called desire. What is it? Ishte vishaye, when I look upon an object as a source of a joy. And that object of a enjoyment, well, so indriya gochara prapte, which is in front of me, which is available in front of me, means which is pratyaksha. Either this or shruyamani. It is not in front, but I hear from someone this particular object, well, about which I hear from somebody. It's available now, it has come out in the market, something like that. So either you hear, so it means it is a paroksha, either you see pratyaksha, smaryamaneva, either you remember, nobody tells you, or it is the object also is not in the front, but you remember the object. Smaryamaneva, anubhute sukhahetu, and well, which is experienced before as a source of joy. Ya gardihi. Gardihi means what? Trishna, yearning basically. Want we say, or yearning, well, that is called kama. So desire is nothing but the yearning for an object of an enjoyment when it is in the front of you. Either it is when it is heard by you and you get a desire for that, or intense pressure arises in you to gain that object, or smaryamaneva, either you remember them, or remember it, or anubhute sukha hetu, or you have experienced before, well, as a source of joy. So a trishna or yearning arises in you regarding that object of enjoyment is called kama. That's what Bhagavan says here. And all are Vishaya Saptami. All Vishaya Saptami, basically. So Shruyamane, Vishaya, Smaryamane, Vishaya, etc. So this is how Bhashyakara defines here kama. Then he defines krodha also. Krodha cha atmanah pratikuleshu dukkhahetushu drishyamaneshu shruyamaneshu smaryamaneshu va yaha dveshah sah krodha. Dveshah krodha. Mental aversion, basically. So, well, or rejection is called krodha. Regarding what? Regarding an object. Atmanah pratikuleshu dukkhahetushu. Well, a object which causes a discomfort to oneself. And dukkhahetushu, well, which becomes a cause for a pain, mental pain, well, or emotional pressure. Well, and such an object, drishyamaneshu, which is in the front of you, or shruyamaneshu, when somebody talks about that object and you definitely feel a mental aversion, or smaryamaneshu, either you remember. People remember even the person who has gone and get angry also. It may happen. Person has already gone, left the world, but this person remembers, and a certain aversion, mental aversion arises in a person. So smaryamaneshu, Acharya says, even you remember, person is not around even in the world, still. Smaryamaneshu va yo dveshah. So this mental aversion regarding such an object, well, which cause a discomfort in oneself, well, such a dvesha, well, discomfort is called, such a rejection or a mental aversion is called krodha. Okay, that's okay. But that's a force, right? In a person, yeah. But force is invisible. The pressure within us is invisible. So then how will I know that the person is other person is under the pressure? Then I can definitely run away from the person. Or the person himself, well, he can definitely feel that pressure, but still, Bhashyakara feels that, well, definitely, since this force is invisible, well, we can know it through basically this pressure overflows, in a mental, in a facial expressions. Or, well, it happens that, it gets expressed in a certain body language, that pressure. And that is how one comes to know. So Bhashyakara feels that, well, because Bhagavan said vegaha, pressure. So Bhashyakara feels, that let me talk about what are the expressions, facial expression, or what is the body language by which one can definitely understand the pressure born of this kama and krodha. So first he narrates a certain expressions when a pressure born of kama arises. Intense kama, desire arises. What are the facial expressions, etc. Bhashyakara says, kama krodod bhavaha vegaha romanchana hrishta netra vadanadi lingaha antakarana prakshobha rupaha kamodbhavaha vegaha. So the force, born of this kama, when the intense desire arises in a mind, well, this thing happens. What happens? Romanchana, basically, due to this pressure, hair standing on the end, romanchana. Then hrishta netra, well, expanded eyes. When kama arises, this thing is in a facial expression, Bhashyakara narrates, expanded eyes. So, Hrishta Netra. Then Hrishta word has to be combined even with the Vadanam also. Hrishta Vadanam. So, a blooming face, definitely. All these are linga. These are all indicators of this kama, intense desire. Also, antakarana prakshobha rupaha. Mind gets disturbed, basically. So, mind gets excited. Rather, that's better. Prakshobha means here excited. Mind is very much excited. Kamodbhavaha vega. These are the linga for this a force arising out of kama. When the intense desire arises, this is an indicator in terms of facial expression. Then what about anger? What are the expressions? Gatra prakampa prasveda sandaushtaputa raktanetradi lingaha krodhodbhavaha vegaha. So gatra prakampa. Gatra means basically limbs of the body. Prakampa, shivering. People definitely shiver when they get too much angry. They shiver. So gatra prakampa, the limbs of body will get shivered. Then prasveda, sweating. Then sandaushta puta. Sandaushthashta puta. Sandaushthashta puta means biting the lips. When a person is angry, he bites the lips. Then rakta netra. And also, the eyes become red, etc. So these are the linga. Facial expression when person becomes, angry, too much angry. So then Bhashyakara says, tam kama krodod bhavam vegam. Now he connects. Yaha utsahate, prasahate, sodum prasahitum sayuktaha yogi, sukhicha iha loke naraha. Naraha, this seeker who is able to basically able to manage this pressure born of this kama, krodha, etc. Yaha utsahate, one who is able to manage. Saha yuktaha, he is an integrated person because he has not come under the sway of this pressure. So saha yuktaha means saha yogi, Bhashyakara says. Yogi means an integrated person. In fact, the yoga discipline itself is meant for integration. Integration between the physical personality, emotional personality, and intellectual personality. That's all it is. So that is an integration, very beautiful. Yoga definitely helps a person to integrate or bring into harmony the various aspects of a personality. So this person basically who is able to manage his reactions, definitely. He is a yogi, he is an integrated person, sukhi cha, naturally, he is a happy person. Who becomes free from such a pressure of anger and even the desire. Iha loke, in this world, naraha, this mumukshu is basically is a yogi or an integrated person and a happy person here. So means basically, once the pressure is released, that we have discussed the methods, then one can gain the knowledge. And once you gain the knowledge, then definitely kama, krodha, even if they arise in the mind and they fall back. It's like waves. Waves arise in the ocean and they just go away. Same way, these also waves because these are basically thoughts. So let them arise in the mind and they fall also in the mind. The basic. So we don't require a perfect mind for gaining knowledge or moksha. And there is no perfect mind also. There is no perfect mind, one thing. And we don't require perfect mind also. Only one should be able to manage one's this kama, krodha or raga, dvesha. And perfect, why you are saying, there is, this, we don't require a perfect mind for moksha. Because, basically perfection of the mind also is not a moksha. Because mind is mind. Moksha is centered on the self. And mind is anatma basically. And moksha is centered on atma. And there is a question of, so making mind perfect is not going to help. And you cannot make it also. That's another thing. Perfection of mind is not a moksha. We should know for sure, basically. So, then one should not basically, why should I manage then? Raga dvesha. Ultimately, raga dvesha is in the mind. That is anatma. And therefore, ultimately it is anatma, it is mithya. Then why should I manage also? Why Bhagavan is talking about like this? Because mind should be reasonably free from this, or mind should be reasonably healthy in order to know that I am not the mind. Basically, this is required. Because anything which is burden will definitely draws your attention. A ill-healthy body all the time draws your attention. Ill-healthy mind also draws your attention. So the mind which is basically ill-healthy due to this pressure of kama krodha will not allow you to definitely ponder upon this knowledge, etc. So you have to make the mind relatively free from this, so it will not be a burden to you. And then once you gain such a mind, which is reasonably healthy, will enable you to know that you are not the mind. That's all. So this is how, such kind of concepts. Most of the seekers have this complaint. Raga dveshas are there and therefore there is no moksha. Still I have likes and dislikes and therefore there is no moksha. Or they may point to someone else. This person, Swamiji, is listening to Swami's talk, Bhagavad Gita, since 15 years. He is not free or she is not free from likes and dislikes. Likes and dislikes are at one place. And moksha is centered on somewhere else. But anyway, the people used to always feel that a perfect mind free from all this kama, krodha, etc. is a moksha. That's a wrong impression, basically. Anyway, so this is a bhashyam. Now let's go to the next verse. Yontas sukhontara ramaha tathantar jyotirevayah sayogi brahma-nirvanam brahma-bhutodhigacchati. Now a description of a wise person has been given here. Of course, that discussion also continues. I mean, it is from a few verses before also it has started. And we have seen in the verse 21, this is verse 24, we have seen in verse 21 that Bahyasparsheshu asaktatma vindati atmani yat sukham. That was a description in which a karma yogi was discussed there. That karma yogi also atmani vindati sukham. The karma yogi also gets a happiness independently without enjoying the objects. Because of a certain attitude behind the action, he gains a happiness. So, between a karma yogi, means a yogi, and a bhogi, the other person who is all the time reveling in the sense pleasures, this person gains happiness which is relatively independent. Who? Karma yogi. And then only it paves a way for ultimately knowing that I am the source of happiness, naturally. So one will have a chance to gain knowledge, becomes a jnani, etc. So karma yogi also gets basically a, sukham independently. There Bhagavan said that in verse 21. So why he gains happiness, I discussed at a length also, but I will just brief it also. So when you basically, when you are called upon to perform a certain action at a given time and place, and that is the action which is to be done, which is appropriate, and all other actions are inappropriate. Everything else is inappropriate. That particular action which is called upon you at a given time and place, which is most appropriate, is called Ishvara. Because basically the most appropriate action is called Dharma. And Dharma is a manifestation of Ishvara. And therefore when you basically, with your free will, definitely you do that action which is most appropriate at a given time and place, you are in harmony with the Dharma, means Ishvara. And when you are in harmony with the Ishvara, you are in hotline with the Ishvara. And therefore, that action itself gives you joy. And I need not discuss, you also know, when you do something which is appropriate to do, even though it's an action, you have not enjoyed any sense object, but still you feel some kind of a satisfaction. I used to give an example in laundry also. Laundry once in a week if we are doing, and if we do it, somehow we will feel satisfaction. For what? We have not enjoyed any object. Why should I feel satisfaction? So, a appropriate action which is called upon a response from you, which at a proper time, at a given time and place when you do, definitely you are in harmony with Ishvara. And that gives you joy. That's how Karma Yogi is basically having a joy due to this reason. Because he is the one well, he does that action, appropriate action in a given time and place. Anyway, so as long as I think that I am agent of an action, I am a karta who enjoys a will or a choice, well, I don't choose action based on these likes and dislikes. I keep them in background, and well, I do what is obviously appropriate to the occasion. And thereby, I connect myself to Ishvara, and that is how there is joy and satisfaction. So this is regarding Karma Yogi. Why I am mentioning that? Because Bhagavan mentions here about wise person who is antas sukha, who is happy. So that's how I compare with the Karma Yogi. Karma Yogi also is a relatively happy person. Independently he is happy. But here Bhagavan gives a description of a wise person in 3 beautiful words. First is a antas sukha. Antaha means atmani, sukham yasya, saha. So one for whom the fulfillment is in oneself alone. So, and here this oneself means we are talking about Brahman or Sachidananda Atma, and therefore this wise person is happy with himself. Why? Because generally a person wants to become happy by manipulating either the world or by manipulating the mind. One has to manipulate. Then only, in world or mind. There are 2 different groups of people. I will tell them also who are they, but basically one becomes happy. That's this thing we have to put it in inverted commas. One becomes happy by manipulating either a world or by manipulating a mind. And so they are both trying to become happy, and both of them have a conclusion in their mind that I'm an unhappy person, naturally. And therefore I want to become happy will definitely be, they will strive for that. So he or she wants to become happy now. They both have a conclusion that one who manipulates the mind or one who manipulates the world. Both have a conclusion that I am unhappy. So basically they are seeking a freedom. With this we have to note, they both are seeking a freedom from this unhappiness or uneasiness centered on oneself. But they want to, because of this conclusion, they get into the rut of this process of becoming happy. So by process of this change, basically, one cannot become happy, honestly. You are not going to become happy, basically, because you are a limited person, and even if you bring a certain change in yourself, in a situation, in manipulating world or manipulating the mind also, basically, you are going to remain as a limited person. And that is what is happening. If I want to become happy, I always remain in the process of becoming happy. I never be happy. That's what our experience is after so many years. That even we feel for a time being that, I have become happy. But ultimately, again, the same conclusion, again comes in my mind that I'm unhappy. And then I start again manipulating the world or the mind. So the limited person cannot become basically limitless. And that experiencing the limitlessness or the fullness is the happiness. There is no other happiness. There is no happiness. In a moment of happiness, you don't have any limitation. You don't feel any limitation, rather. That's the thing. So the limited person cannot become basically limitless by process of this change. What is limited will continue to basically limited. And how many changes you brought in you, but Puja Swami used to give an example that you can embellish a broomstick with any amount of ornaments. Still it is basically a broomstick. So this is how it is. So this is how we all the time embellish ourselves, and definitely, but still we remain a limited person. So the process of becoming this happen itself is a very anityam. It's anityam. And anything, definitely that becomes is subject to becoming. And then new condition arises, that also goes away. And another condition arises, that also goes away. Person remains all the time in this same rut. One doesn't become really happy. And therefore, I seek basically happiness means I seek fullness or wholeness, which is not possible by becoming happy. So if there is really a solution for this, gaining happiness, it is not within the sphere of becoming. That's for sure. Then only solution is that you may be happiness, you may be a fullness, but you are not aware of it, you may not be knowing it. And therefore Bhagavan says, the wise person who is awake to himself, knowing the self as a fullness, ultimately finds fulfillment in oneself. So he's called antasukha. So the wise person is called who finds fulfillment in oneself. This is first qualification of a wise person. Second is a antararamaha. Antararamaha. Because this person finds fulfillment in oneself, he or she revels all the time in the self. He all the time revels in oneself. He does not require anything else to amuse himself. No object, no situation, no person is required for happiness to such a person. Means then definitely the self must be perfect. Then only you can revel in that. If the self is imperfect, no one would like to revel into that. In fact, one wants to get away from the imperfect self. So basically, then definitely the self must be the Brahman, and it is the very essence of fullness or happiness in which this wise person revels. Generally what happens is one who picks up a moment of joy is always with respect to some object, situation or a person. So either outside or inside. So outside one discovers a certain joy in objects, he is called bhogi. One who tries to discover joy inside is a yogi. But ultimately, the only difference between two is that the yogi does not require any tools other than himself. Yogi's raw material is an agitated mind, basically. And if this is there, agitated mind is there, yoga, which is a discipline, definitely can be practiced. And so if mind is not agitated, you don't require yoga, basically. So yogi's joy is also with reference to an object called mind. So that's how inner. And bhogi's enjoyment is outside, in sense objects. The difference between bhogi and yogi is this. But both have a certain object. One has a mind which is free from agitation, then he enjoys, yogi. And one who enjoys, sense objects is a bhogi. Both have an enjoyment with respect to objects. And the third one is a rogi. Yeah, the third one is a rogi. It's another person who is deceased, and so he or she cannot basically manipulate the world. He or she cannot manipulate even the mind, because he's a ill person, sick person. So such a person can't keep himself, herself in good humor, basically, because of pain of illness. So all these are basically not happy with oneself. Either bhogi, either yogi, either rogi. Bhogi also with respect to objects, external. Yogi also with respect to object called mind. When mind's condition is certain ideal condition, then he becomes happy, free from agitation, etc. And rogi, there is no question of that he is having having a happiness, etc., or he is having a good humor, etc. There is no question, because he is in a pain of illness. Anyway, so only Jnani is the one who is happy with himself. That's so antararama, he revels in oneself, because the self is fullness. And in a moment of happiness, basically my fullness only manifests. One who has that clarity is called Jnani. One who has a clarity that in any moment of joy, my fullness only manifests. My conclusion regarding myself that I am a limited being gets dropped. The object has a certain capture that you sing, I used to tell, somebody cracks a joke, or you see something beautiful in the nature, or you see a child which is laughing and seeing at you, and you just become happy. So at that moment, basically, the conclusion about you, which is just a notion, gets dropped. And so you experience your fullness, which we call as a happiness. So the one who is aware of this value all the time revels in oneself. Anyway, and the third one is antarjyotihi. A description of a wise person. Antasukha, antararamaha, antarjyotihi. The one whose mind is awake to oneself is called Antarjyoti. Jyoti means a light, basically. Just as a light illumines various objects outside, same way this mind also illumines object for me to see. And the mind also, in addition to illumining objects externally, the mind is also awake to the self for a wise person. And what kind of a self? Basically, the whole mind is evolved from the self. And the whole show is a show of a mind. Either it is a waking state, either it is a dream state, both are the shows of a mind. The mind itself divides into a waker, waking experience, and the object of waking. The mind itself divides into a dreamer and dreaming, process of dreaming, and object of dream, and does whole show. When mind resolves, the show goes away. And the mind, well, basically, which arises from the self, well, makes the whole show of a triad, Triputi we call. And so, basically, the mind which arises out of this consciousness, and all the thoughts are pervaded by consciousness, and ultimately they become object of consciousness, and they make the whole show. So the mind also is nothing but non-separate from the self, and therefore one this wise person whose mind is awake to such a self, well, ultimately is called Antarjyoti, because the whole show is nothing but a show of Atma, which illumines everything in form of a waking or waking world, let us say waking stage or a dream stage, both. So Bhagavan says, Sahayogi, well, this wise person, Brahma Bhutaha, well, whose Atma is Brahman, well, one whose Atma is non-separate from Brahman, he does not consider himself as a person now, no more. And so, such a person is a, Brahma-nirvanam adhigacchati, he merges into Brahman. He gains Videha Mukti. This aspect I will discuss after our break. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyannijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivodbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Svatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantharivankuro Jagadidam Prang-nirvikalpam punaha Maya kalpita deshakalakalana Vaichitra-chitri kritam Maya-miva vidrumbhayatyapimaha yogi vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayinim Ambattvamanusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutah Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramau Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavasthitatanga Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam na vidussura suraganaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai. Verse 24. Yontas sukhontararamaha tathantarjyotirevayah sayogim brahma-nirvanam brahma-bhutodhigacchati. So as I said, it's a description of a wise person, and three words are used. Antasukha, one who finds fulfillment in oneself. Antasukha, antararamaha. Well, since he finds fulfillment within oneself, so revels in oneself. Antararamaha. Antaha aramaha actually. Asamantat ramanam. And then antarjyotihi. Whatever the show is there in the waking world and in the dream world is due to me. The Atma. Actually, it's a show of a mind. But the mind also is non-separate from the consciousness. The conscious mind only makes a show. Waker is a consciousness. And object of waking world, well, of course it's due to consciousness. Otherwise, how can it become a known? So anyway, whole show is a show of a mind. But mind is also which arises from the Atma. Well, with the help of a Maya, etc. So, well, that is the show. So, antarjyotihi. So Jyoti, the light by which everything shines in every state, is ultimately the ultimate light. Let's say that's is Atma. So Antarjyoti. This is all description of me, which is a reality. I am not knowing, therefore I may not be able to appreciate. That's another thing. But this is a reality. Whatever description has been given regarding when a wise person is applicable to ignorant person, but only difference is ignorant person doesn't know the fact. Wise person is aware of the fact. He is awake to the Atma, which is of such nature. Sayogi, well, this is a wise person. That wise person alone, Jyotihi eva. So that wise person alone, Brahma-bhutaha. Well, the Atma is Brahman. So one whose Atma basically is non-separate from Brahman is called Brahma-bhuta. Well, so he gains a freedom because he identifies with Brahman. There is no union. There is no union of a Jiva and Ishvara. It's a realizing that I am not a Jiva. There is no union. That Jiva and Ishvara union takes place. As if there are two separate entities. Two separate entities, and well, by knowledge you cannot make it one. You should do some kind of physical process to unite, really speaking. By knowledge, if you identify with Brahman, means it's a reality which you are not aware of. And therefore, it's a very big thing. So what you want to be, well, ultimately it's yourself. You want to be the happy person, the full person. You want to see yourself full. You are. That's what it is. So Jiva is mithya, basically. Anyway, so he gains moksha, freedom from this sense of limitation and bondage. Brahma-bhutaha. He understood self as a Brahman. And we can call it as a Jivan Mukti. Actually, there is only one Mukti. There is only one Mukti called Nitya Mukti. That's all. That's Atma's nature. Nitya Mukti means Atma is ever free. Atma was free, Atma is free, and Atma will be free. That's only Mukti. One who is aware of this Nitya Mukta Atma is a Jivan Mukta. He is a Jivan Mukta. And then Videha Mukti, well, I will talk about it, that also. So from the Vyavahara standpoint, is Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, etc. There is basically one Mukti called Nitya Mukti. That is Atma's nature or Brahman's nature. Anyway, so here it says Brahma-nirvana adhigacchati, Bhagavan says. Nirvana means nirvritim, layaha, merger. So even while living, he is Brahman. And so Brahmavid Brahmaiva bhavati. So while living, he is Brahman. And well, after death also, well, after death of the body, after death of the body, well, he merges into Brahman, Param Brahman. Means he will not have a punarjanma, etc. So while living also there is a moksha for such people, and later also there will be a moksha. So both the types of mukti have been talked about by. Brahma-bhutaha reveals a Jivan Mukti, and Brahma-nirvana reveals a Videha Mukti. So knowing that, I am free is the greatest freedom. There is no other freedom. Knowing that I am free is the greatest freedom. And so, while living also you are liberated, you are free. This is one freedom. And then second freedom is after death of this physical body, that freedom. So, there is no coming back to this bondage again. You are free once and for all. Anyway, and now verse 25. Labhante Brahma-nirvanam rushaya kshina kalmashaha chinnadvaidha yatatmanaha sarvabhuta hite rataha. Now Bhagavan gives a summary actually of the whole thing. This adhyaya, this particular chapter is called Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Right? Karma Sannyasa Yoga means Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Karma Sannyasa means taking formal sannyasa. That is not a topic. Bhagavan is not interested in any formal sannyasa. He has described wise people who are grihastha. In the 4th chapter, very well-known verse, this gives a description of a wise person's drashti towards the world. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavihi, Brahmagano, Brahmana Hutam. So, the whole yaga is going on, and this person looks upon the fire as a Brahman, and the Yajamana as a Brahman. Everything he is looked upon as Brahman. So definitely he is a grihastha. If formal sannyasa will not do that karma because he has given up karma. So several places Bhagavan describes a wise people which are grihastha. Anyway, so basically here karma sannyasa yoga means jnana karma sannyasa yoga. Just as a person who takes a formal sannyasa gives up a karma, gives up a relationship, gives up the possessions, same way the person who has gained this jnanam of the self, that self which is relationless, self which does not possess anything, and the self which is free from doership. Well, one who knows the Atma like this is a sannyasi only. So that's in fact that is the sannyasa Bhagavan wants actually, sarva karma sannyasi. So Bhagavan gives a summary of this sarva karma sannyasi here, the knowing the self free from doership, enjoyership, etc. And Bhagavan gives a description like this, rushayaha, first thing. Sarva karma sannyasi is described as a rushayaha, rushi. Rushati janati iti rushihi. So a sage is called rishi. So all the teachers in the Veda are referred to as a rishi, basically. So wise person also is a sage. But how? Bhagavan gives a complete description for that, of the wise person. First thing, kshina kalmashaha. Kalmasha, impurities. Bhashakara says papa, kshina papadi doshaha. One who was, free from all impurities. Ragadvesha, basically. And all other impurities, ignorance. And other notions. Every notion about oneself, in a waking state, in a dream state, which I carry, about myself, a judgment, self-judgment, is all dosha. All dosha. Except I am Brahman. Everything which I say about myself, in a vyavahara, of course it is required, that's another thing. But it is all projection. So that he has become free from even such projections also. He has become free from, definitely, ragadveshas also, he has done karma yoga, etc. So kshina kalmashaha, he is free from the hold of ragadvesha. Then sarva bhuta hite rataha. So those who joyously engage themselves for the good of all other beings. Sarva bhuta hite rataha. Very important qualification for the one who wants to gain knowledge, basically. In fact, that is where karma yoga starts. Karma yoga is doing something good for others. That's only called karma yoga. Really speaking, karma yoga indicates, the word karma indicates this sattvika karma. And sattvika karma in which the beneficiaries are more. By doing karma, if you are only the beneficiary or your family is a beneficiary, well, it's one type of karma. If beneficiaries are more than your family or yourself, such a kind of a karma. And one has to select because one is given free will. And therefore, there is no excuse. How can I do this action? It's a free will. And at a proper time and proper place, there is an appropriate call for you. Definitely it is there. I should have that sensitivity to look into that. Otherwise, one can definitely lead oneself to a life of karma yoga. That's the only way of purifying oneself. one's mind basically. If you want to make your mind very light, then, well, definitely you have to get rid of this ragadvesha, which is really a burden. There's only impurity Bhagavan considers all the time. In Bhagavad Gita, kama, krodha or ragadvesha continuously talking about. Anyway, so sarvabhuta hitera, these wise people, well, basically, that is the nature for them because they have already gone through karma yoga. And therefore, well, this is natural for a wise person to joyously engage in doing good for others. And, well, Bhashyakara gives another meaning, ahimsakaha. Bhashyakara says, sarvabhuta hiterataha means ahimsakaha. Such a people observe ahimsa, means non-violence with great alertness and sensitivity. In fact, the vow of ahimsa, basically not to hurt another, is the main vow a person takes when he takes a life of a formal sannyasa. So that's a vrata which Guru first, makes him that first you take this vow. Before giving sannyasa, they'd say that. Anyway, so generally people, well, do not rejoice in, in the happiness of others, but these wise people only rejoice in the welfare of others. They are disposed to bringing it about, in fact. And sometimes they themselves, well, may not get involved into, directly in the help a person requires, but they will always do what they can to arrange for it. And will have a prayer. Naturally they pray. That itself, the prayer on the part of even a wise person, well, shows it is sarvabhuta hiterata, compassionate nature of a wise person. And then Bhagavan says, yatatmanaha. So those who have a control or mastery over sense organs as well as organs of action, relative control over them. Chinna dvaidaha. Dvaida means a samshaya, doubt. Chinna, resolved. So these are the people whose doubts have been resolved. Basically, there are, these doubts are of many types. First is this Atma is one or many. This Jagat is real or unreal. Is Jiva separate from Ishvara or it is one with Ishvara? Several doubts are there. Atma is limitless or limited, etc., etc. Because one experiences oneself a limited being, not myself. Everyone experiences in the same way. And therefore, well, how can you say like that? Universally, everyone says, I am a limited being. And Shruti says something different. You are limitless. In fact, you take yourself to be a limited being is error. So means definitely a question will be there, a doubt will be there. So Chinnadvaidaha, for such a wise person, all the doubts have been resolved. Anyway, let's go to verse 26. Kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito Brahma-nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. So throughout this Gita, there's a repeated mention of kama and krodha and need to become free from them also. So kama krodha viyuktaha, those who have freed themselves from this ragadvesha, kama, krodha, etc., desire, anger, etc., from the pressure of that. And then Bhagavan says, yatihi. Generally, conventionally, word yati is used for a sannyasi. But here we cannot take, Bhashyakara defines yatina means sannyasina. But anyway, here we have to take it a little different meaning. So yat, there is a root called yat. Yat root indicates to put effort, basically. It's called yat. So yati means one who definitely puts an effort, who has a goal, moksha as a goal, and then well-directed efforts in order to gain that goal is called yati. So we have to take yati, who is a sannyasi, who definitely has led a life of a karma yoga, definitely. One can commit oneself to knowledge only under one condition: one has done enough karma yoga. And by that, one has purified oneself. That's the only qualification. Every knowledge requires qualification. Everyone is not qualified for everything. In terms of knowledge, I'm talking about. So one has to definitely pass through the qualifying test. And therefore, so the sannyasi is the one who has a commitment to the study. Basically, commitment to the Shastra study, gaining knowledge rather. no other commitment. And one can commit oneself to the knowledge only under one condition. Your mind should not bother you. All the time, our likes and dislikes bother too much. And therefore, relatively free from that. So, we can take here Yatinam here. Definitely sannyasi, but who was a karma yogi before also. Viditatmanam, clear. Viditatmanam. Viditaha atma yena saha. One who knows the self as Brahman is called Viditatma, a wise person. And definitely, if he knows the self as Brahman, definitely he is Yata Chetasam, whose mind, a wise person is the one whose mind is a friendly to himself. Yeah. Yata Chetasam means one who, Chetas means mind. Yata Chetasam means one whose mind is friendly. Wise person is the one whose mind is friendly to himself, herself, whatever it may be. And that is possible under one condition. Well, you see, basically, if I identify with the mind and then trying to control the mind, refine the mind, it is very difficult. But if you are able to objectify the mind, well, knowing it as anatma, mithya, etc., then one can easily work with the mind. You can work easily with anything once you objectify it. If you can identify it with a given thing, you cannot bring a change. And this is a general principle. And therefore, basically, here also, he knows, Viditatma, he knows himself that he's not a mind. He knows the self as Brahman. And therefore, now he can work very well with the mind. And that refinement, but why should he do such a kind of refinement? Why? There is no need. No, it is required. In as much as there are people for whom he is a role model, or he or she is a role model. In fact, and therefore, if certain emotions come out of his mind, even though for him it is a mithya, people will lose the faith in knowledge, lose the faith in the jnani also, and will lose the faith in jnanam also. So it is always better to work with one's mind, and they do. They can easily do. That's how Yata Chetasa. Yata Chetasa means whose mind, such a person who has made the mind friendly. Anyway, and so once this commitment is total, you will gain the self-knowledge, and so you will be a Viditatma. Abhito Brahma-nirvanam. Well, there is nothing else to worry about later, because knowing Atma and gaining moksha is the one thing alone, because self is ever free, and you know the self is free, so you are free. Right? So, abhitaha means ubhayataha. Bhashyakara says ubhayataha, both the types. Brahma-nirvana means identifying with the Brahman, well, in both the ways, while living and after the death of the body also. So, while living also you are liberated. This is one freedom. And the second freedom is called after death, Videha Mukti we call, because there is no coming back, well, to this bondage. But then why people talk about Videha Mukti? Because ultimately it is not required, really speaking. Pujya Swamiji used to tell, that we are not interested in this Videha Mukti, whether I will be born again or not. But people have one question. That's how they talk about this Videha Mukti. Some people worry about what happens after death. And saying that, well, I take so much effort and gain moksha, but suppose if I come back, then... Therefore, that is how they have to say, well, you will not be reborn, etc. And so, and the reason is the very jiva, who comes back and goes and here and there, etc. The very jiva is falsified. The very jivatvam is falsified. And well, so there is no one anymore to come back. And therefore, Bhagavan says in both the ways, ubhayataha. Abhitaha means, abhitaha Brahma-nirvana means ubhayataha. In the both the ways, here and hereafter, wise person gains moksha, gains oneness with the Brahman. So a twofold moksha is mentioned only with reference to this question only. Now with this, as such, the topic of 5th chapter is over, because these were the summary verses for the 5th chapter. And and now Bhagavan introduces a topic of the 6th chapter here. And that topic is a meditation, Nitidhyasana we call. So here in the last 3 verses now, 27, 28 and 29, Bhagavan gives a description. He talks about meditation and result of meditation also in these 3 verses. So meditation is prescribed well for the basically assimilation of knowledge. And because the knowledge, whatever we are gaining, is in conscious mind. And all our behavior ultimately is based on our unconscious mind, rather subconscious mind. All our responses in the situation, most of them are mechanical responses. Even anger, etc., I have already talked to you. Anger, sorrow, frustration, etc. Well, all. And therefore, on one side, you will find the person is gaining this knowledge by which he should be a happy person. He should not be a complaining person. But you find the other way. When by gaining such a knowledge, one should not be angry, etc. also. But you find, and therefore, definitely, to assimilate the knowledge at the subconscious level, while one has to do this meditation. So for internalization of teaching, it should go to the subconscious mind, because as I told you, the reactions are coming. And most of our habitual thinking, most of the time, all other things are also there. Taking oneself as a body. After listening 1 hour in a class, you or me, suppose, after listening in 1 hour in class that you are Brahman and you are convinced also thoroughly, and that I am nothing but just consciousness, body is anatma, etc. The moment we just walk, immediately that habit only comes. That happens. And this habit is a very old habit. It is not going to go easily. Any habit which is old will take time to go. Even a 1-year-old habit does not go within few days. So this is anadi. Self-ignorance is anadi. And therefore, taking the body, etc. as a self is anadi, because I am self-conscious. And therefore, in every janma, I have taken the body as a self. So it's a very, very long, very long drawn rather, a habit. So it takes time. People get generally frustrated that this knowledge is very good, but it doesn't come to our rescue. It is not giving us benefit. Jnanam gets converted into jnana phalam only by nididhyasana. That's the only thing. Shravanam plus mananam gives you a knowledge which is doubt-free. Shravanam gives you knowledge. Mananam will resolve the doubts pertaining to that knowledge. And once it is doubt-free knowledge, it is sitting in your conscious mind. But at a subconscious level, all the habits are there, reactions are there, mechanical responses are there. And sometimes in such a, even, our habitual thinking in such a manner. Even if you take bath for 15 minutes and you come out and you don't know whether you have taken bath or not. People eat the food and they don't know whether they have eaten food or what kind of food they have eaten. Because the mind continuously goes on and it's all habitual thinking, mechanical response. And this is all coming out of the subconscious mind. So whole our behavior comes out of the subconscious mind. And therefore this knowledge which is in the conscious mind has to percolate into subconscious mind. And therefore one has to sit with oneself and dwell upon the teaching, etc. for a time being, etc. So, definitely for this, Bhagavan now gives the introduction of this meditation here. And meditation breaks this habitual pattern. So, briefly talks about initial steps of meditation, Bhagavan talks about here. And some of the steps are there in the next chapter. Some are mentioned here, so I am clubbing them together because it's better to give you in a sequence all the steps. And the first step, which is a preliminary step when you sit in a meditation, certain preliminary steps are there, which we do also, all the teachers do. The first step is a person is seated in a comfortable posture, in which the person can sit at least for 15 minutes without physical disturbance. That's the first thing. Second thing is you can clasp your hands together and place over your lap. That's the second step. Third thing is, keep your back, neck, head erect, perpendicular to the ground. Sitting erect, basically. That's the third step. Fourth stage is the position of the face. Face is looking straight, neither up nor down. And fifth step is eyes must be gently closed. that you should hear Swamiji's description. Gently closed. If you close tightly, you will not be able to meditate. So only, eyelids touch each other. So eyes can be gently closed. Anyway, then what is to be done has been told by Bhagavan now. Let's read that. Sparshan kritva bahir bahyan chakshushchaivantare bhruvoh prana panau samau kritva nasabhyantara charinau. So, Bhagavan says, prana panau samau kritva. This may be a 6th step or something. 5 steps, I have already told you, there are preliminary steps before meditation. And this is 6th one. Prana panau samau krutva. Prana means exhalation. Apana means inhalation. So, prana panau. And Bhagavan also gives a position. Where are they? Nasa abhyantara charinau. Well, which are moving in the nostrils. Prana and apana, inhalation, exhalation, which are moving in the nostrils. Well, samau krutva. You should make them even and relaxed. Not doing pranayama, basically. We never do pranayama. For making them even or relaxed, we become an observer of our own inhalation and exhalation. That's enough. So instead of a pranayama, we do a prana vikshanam, we call. Observing our own breath, inhalation and exhalation, which is touching the tip of the nose, etc. Touching the tip of the nose, going inside or coming out. Even sometimes you feel that the air which you inhale is comparatively cooler naturally, and the air which comes out as exhalation is warm. So as if you are definitely even feeling that sense of, the sense of touch also is there. So you pay attention to your prana and apana, both. So this is how samau krutva means by regulating in this manner. And why this is a step has been told before meditation, because ultimately this breathing and the mind both are interconnected. And so while regulating the breathing, one can regulate one's mind. And therefore, ultimately this has been told for that purpose. And that is how even before doing puja also, before doing japa also, we have a regulation of breathing. While it is there. Om bhuhu bhuva suha maha jana tapa satyam. And then Gayatri mantra, and then again you will say. And so, there of course we do a little bit of, kumbhaka, rechaka and etc. also. But what I am saying is, basically even if you observe, while of your inhalation and exhalation, well, they become even and relaxed. Prana and apana becomes even and relaxed. So, says here, prana panau samau krutva. Then Bhagavan gives another step. Chakshuhu bhruvoho antare krutva chaiva. Chakshuhu bhruvoho antare. So we draw all the sense organs, and of course in all the sense organ, most powerful sense organ is eyes. And so may you bring the eyes or the vision between 2 eyebrows. Means not looking outward. Even if you are not able to do that, nothing to worry. But well, eyes must be closed, not looking outward. Then Bhagavan gives another step, a very important step now. Bahyan sparshan bahihi krutva. Pujya Swamiji in meditation generally follows all these steps. And the Bahyan sparshan, he has a whole big commentary also. Bahyan sparshan bahihi krutva. The word sparsha we have already seen before, before few verses. Sprashante iti sparshaha. So, anything that comes in contact, any sense object which comes in contact with the sense organ is called sparsha. Because it is a contact. And so, and they are all external. Shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasagandha, etc. So they all are external. And so Bhagavan says, Bahyan sparsha. All the sense objects which are external. Well, bahihi krutva. The sense objects which are external, keeping them external. But which are external, where is to keep, they are external already. Then where is the question of keeping them external? That shows that the objects which are external, they have a capacity to enter our mind. And so they are internal too. And therefore, there is a process of keeping the external objects external. There is a process. First, I will give you a general process, but what Swamiji follows is another one, which is really good. So, well, during meditation, how the things which are external, I mean, not just objects, other people also, they all enter. They are not in our mind, but when we sit in meditation, they all come in. They don't go out also, whatever we try. So, this is very important, what Pujya Swamiji says. But before that, let's see this. So, means you leave them alone. Keeping external objects, external means leave them alone for the time being. You simply stop thinking about them. So, you turn your mind well to something else. That's what it means. So, then they will remain external. So, you don't need to, well, turn these objects, sense objects away from you. Nor do you have to turn away from sense objects. Because anywhere you go, sense objects will be there. The whole world is this. Whole world is either a sound, either a form, either a touch, or either, some taste. All objects are there. Whole world is made up of this. Therefore, these two things are not required. Neither keep them away, sense objects, physically, neither you turn away from them. It is not required. Think about something else, and therefore, you turn your mind to something else, thereby they remain external. So, anyway, we cannot blame the sense objects for being in our head, because they will be there all the time, and they are useful also to basically we sustain our life due to sense objects. And that's how one Acharya said very beautifully, even the sense organs have been made external by Brahmaji, right? So even that is also good, because to sustain yourself, to sustain your body, everything comes from the external world. Everything comes from the external world. Air comes from there, water comes from outside, food comes from outside. Body is not self-sustained. And therefore, well, the sense organs also should be external and definitely contact various sense objects, and therefore it is good. So, but only thing is to look upon the sense objects as a source of joy, peace or security. That much is, that calculation is a wrong calculation. They sustain your life, well, that's fine. But they give you happiness or peace or security, well, that's an extra value which you have superimposed upon the world. Any sense object. That's an extra value, which we should not do. Anyway, that is called an lack of vairagyam, lack of dispassion. Superimposing this kind of a value which it doesn't have. It's a subjective value rather. It's not an objective. So anyway, this is one method. Means you think about something else, you turn away your mind to the other direction, and so thereby they remain external. But what Pujya Swamiji says, I would like to share with you. Most of them maybe you may be knowing also. So, sparshan kritva bahihi bahyan. So, he gives the whole description. So, you divide the world into two parts. One part of the world, it's external only. But still I divide. The external world I divide into two. One part of the world where, when I contact that part of the world, I become happy. And another part of the world, external world, when I contact, well, definitely some complaints and dissatisfaction arises. So one part of the world, well, I want to go near to that part. Other part of the world, external world, which I want to get rid of. So that is due to our own projection. And so the external world, objects like mountains and rivers and, and these birds, river beds and birds and all this, trees and sun and all this, they are external. I don't keep them external, basically. But even though they enter in my mind, but they can easily be dropped if I start meditating. Why? Because basically I don't want them to be different. I don't want any of those objects. The objects in the creation which I don't want them to be different, they are the source of happiness. Especially that is how all this, the objects of the nature basically, gives me happiness. So that is the one thing. So that external world, which is a nature, well, definitely whenever I come in contact with, I become happy because I don't want them to be different. I don't have any particular complaint regarding them. And one has to visualize. The meditator has to visualize this in the mind before he comes to the other part of the world. That I don't want this mountain to be different. I accept them whatever they are, and whatever the form they are, and then they remain external. You appreciate basically them objectively. And since you have no demands or complaints, well, they don't remain within your mind. Whenever you contact them, they are in the mind. But afterwards, they can easily get dropped. By my complaint, by my some dissatisfaction, by my some want or demand, I keep them internal. That's what Puja Swamiji says. Anyway, so like that tree and bird, etc. Well, to all these objects, well, I am still objective. People in general, black, white, etc. If I have no color prejudice, then they are external and they remain external. And well, then come to the other part of the world, which is very near. Nature is a little away. The other part of the world, which I contact every day, is family, naturally. So then Puja Swamiji says, well, now think about your father. Forget about now mountain, etc. And you will forget also. Think of your father during meditation. You can't say you don't have demands. You have to keep them, in your thought. Immediately it may not arise. If you dwell upon them, immediately some want, some demand, some dissatisfaction will arise. So there is a wish that he was different. And that wish makes a father not only outside, but inside too. That's what it is. And so, in form of a wish. So he is object of your wish. Wish is inside, and therefore the object of wish also will be inside. So even though father is outside, but he has entered as an object of wish. Wish is inside, W-I-S-H. Wish is inside, so object also of a wish will remain inside. So the father, mother, etc. All this, well, basically, I cannot say I am objective to them like mountain, etc. So I can't take my father as basically as a known person. This you have to tell, all this during meditation. I'm not able to do right now this meditation, but this is a way to make your mind free from the world which is external and keeping them external ultimately. So I cannot take my father as a known person. And so I have a care and love, and that is acceptable. But love and care, well, cannot make you tense or disturb. And so your agenda for a father makes me disturb. Basically, he should be different, etc., etc. Now, how to drop this agenda? Puja Swami used to tell one sentence, which is very good, that, well, you can say, this is how my father was, or my father is, or my father will be, either, maybe, because may not be there, but sometime the person has gone, but still, the person feels his presence in terms of, because the person's dissatisfaction continues even the person is dead. That is there. Somebody has done something when he was alive, and still you are dissatisfied even though the person is dead. And so anyway, you have to say this. Visualizing him, you have to say, this is how my father was, or my father is in my perception. And generally, my perception is wrong because born of ultimately ignorance. So I may be looking to a person from one angle. From other angle, well, and that is what is happening. I may have a complaint for you, but then other person says, I don't have a complaint for the same person. And therefore, well, it is my perception. And my perception, well, it can be wrong. You should say, it can be wrong. Then only you will drop that. And so, well, he's in my perception, well, he's like this, etc. In this way, you accept your father like you accepted mountain and rivers and etc. Well, there you have no demand, etc. So, mountains and etc., well, all the nature, objects of nature, well, you are able to drop them. Well, they don't bother you in your meditation. But, well, father, mother, employee, employer, husband, wife, son, daughter, daughter-in-law, all they bother. Take each of them and say this. This is how my father was, or my mother was, or my wife was, and in my perception, etc., etc. And well, perception can be wrong. Generally, it is wrong. But anyway, this is how my perception is. This is how any person who has entered in form of a wish, well, now remains external. Because you don't wish now to be different. Just as you don't wish a mountain to be different, and you are able to drop it, well, same way you can drop this thing. This is the only way to make the external world external. That's how, even though the whole world is external, part of the world gives me a joy and part of the world does not give me joy. It's not that there is a fault of a world, it's due to my own demand or wish, etc. So anyway, so visualize each one of them, and well, you should say, my care and love is there, and I wish he should be different, she should be different, in his or her advantage. Well, fine. Don't feel helpless. If you can't change a person, pray. Say some prayer. Then they will go from your mind. It may happen so. Anyway, so this is how each one of them is in my perception. Any other person to whom you are connected, well, visualize and grant this freedom of remaining what they are. And this is how, well, he or she is in my perception. If you think, well, a part, well, of the person is not good and in his benefit I am thinking about, I wish to be different, well, you can pray, but don't feel helpless. Pray. But then definitely you will drop a wish for a person, and then external world remains external. Because these all people who are nearby, well, they are not just external, they are internal too. And they all appear when I sit in meditation. So meditator has to do this step, well, bhakyan sparshan bahihi krutva, keeping external world external. So Bhagavan says perfectly, because there is a part of the world which is internal too. And therefore, to keep them external, this is how we should do. Anyway, so we'll stop here, and because the other two verses will take a little more time. They are all combined, next two verses, which I will not be able to complete. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.